It was always done at night. Neighbors would wake up to sounds they couldn't explain. Metal scraping, stone shifting, something heavy moving in the dark. But no one ever saw him do it. Not once. By morning, massive blocks of stone, some weighing several tons, had been cut, lifted, and set into place like pieces of a puzzle. Walls appeared. Towers took shape. Doorways aligned perfectly. And all of it was built by one man, Leedskalnin, 5 feet tall and barely 100 pounds. No machinery, no crew, no witnesses. And when people asked him how he did it, he gave the same answer every time. I understand the laws of weight and leverage. And sometimes, something even stranger. I know the secrets of the pyramids. To this day, no one knows exactly what he meant, but the Coral Castle still stands, and whatever happened there happened in the dark. Welcome back to Greetings from Florida. I'm your host, Joe Torino, and today we're heading just outside of Miami to a place that shouldn't exist. From the road, it looks simple. A stone wall. A quiet property in Homestead, Florida. But inside is one of the strangest structures in the United States. More than 1,000 tons of stone, carved, shaped, and arranged with precision. Furniture made from rock, towers aligned to the sun, and a gate that once opened with the push of a finger. And all of it was built by one man. No one saw him do it. No one knows exactly how he did it. But the real question might not be how. It might be why. Leedskalnin was born in 1887 in Latvia, which at the time was part of the Russian Empire. Life there was hard, rural, physical, demanding. Not exactly the kind of place where you stumble into building a mysterious stone monument. More like you're just trying to survive winter. He was the 5th son in a farming family, but they didn't own the land they worked. He only received a 4th grade education, but he spent time reading, learning on his own, developing an interest in how things worked. Some accounts suggest he learned basic stonemasonry from his father, a skill that wouldn't seem important at the time, but would later define his life. He was small, quiet, physically weak. Not exactly the guy you'd look at and think, yeah, this guy's definitely going to move 1,000 tons of stone by himself someday. But at 26 years old, something changed everything. He fell in love. Her name was Agnes Scuffs, but he called her something else. Sweet 16. They were engaged, planning a life together, and then, the night before the wedding, she left him. No explanation, no goodbye. She was just gone. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. But for Edward, it was just the beginning. When he came to the United States in 1912, he didn't come straight to Florida. He moved around looking for work, eventually heading to the Pacific Northwest during a logging boom. At one point, he was in Oregon making axe handles, which, if you're keeping score, is usually not the first step towards building one of the strangest structures in American history. Eventually, he made his way to South Florida, but when he arrived, he wasn't strong. He was sick, weak, barely able to work. A local family, the Mosers, took him in. They cared for him, helped him recover, and gave him a place to stay. And when he was strong enough, he bought land from them. In 1923, a small notice appeared in the Homestead enterprise. A man named E. Leedskalnin had purchased an acre of land and planned to build a home. Nothing unusual, just another man starting over. But they had no idea what he was about to build. He called it Ed's place. At first, it wasn't a castle, just a small structure made from limestone and wood. But from the very beginning, he worked differently. He worked at night, always alone, which, to be fair, is already suspicious. If anyone came near, he stopped immediately. If someone tried to watch him, he would wait until they left. And by morning, something new would be there. A wall, a carved stone, a structure that hadn't existed the day before. Which is impressive, but also exactly the kind of thing that makes neighbors start talking. Over time, it grew. More than 1,000 tons of stone, cut, shaped, and arranged into walls, furniture, and structures. Not coral, but oolite limestone. Porous, but still heavy. Still difficult to work with. And yet, he did it all alone. Then, in the 1930s, Edward did something even more unbelievable. He moved it. All of it. From Florida City to Homestead, about 10 miles away. He hired a truck and a driver, but there was one condition. The driver was never allowed to see how the stones were loaded, which is a little unusual. Imagine showing up for work and being told, "Hey, just go take a walk for a while. When you come back, the impossible part will be done." And somehow, the stones would be loaded, ready to go. Every structure, every stone, moved, rebuilt, exactly how he wanted it. And this is where the story changes from history to mystery. People began to talk. They said he levitated the stones, that he used magnetism, that he had discovered something the rest of the world hadn't. Some even believed he had unlocked the secrets of the pyramids. And as the years passed, that story only grew. What started as questions turned into theories, then into legends. By the 1980s, Coral Castle had made its way into national television. An episode of In Search Of, narrated by Leonard Nimoy, called it the Castle of Secrets, a place built by a frail man who somehow moved over 1,000 tons of stone using knowledge lost to time. Some even suggested he had uncovered the secrets of Atlantis, which is always where things go when no one has a better explanation. Not engineering, not physics, but something ancient, forgotten. And for many watching, that explanation felt just as believable as anything else. But when you look closer, there are other explanations. Tripods, chains, pulleys, tools that still exist on the property today. Not quite as exciting as lost ancient civilizations, but significantly more practical. Leedskalnin himself said he understood the laws of leverage, and the stone he worked with was lighter than it appeared. And physically, he didn't look like someone capable of this. He was small, thin, living mostly on crackers and sardines, which is not exactly a high-performance construction diet. And then there was the gate, a 9-ton stone door, so perfectly balanced it could be opened with one finger. For decades, no one understood how it worked, until it stopped working. When engineers took it apart, they found something simple. A metal shaft, a bearing, perfect balance, which is a lot less mysterious, but honestly, way more impressive. And still, even with all of that, it doesn't fully explain everything. Edward wasn't just a builder. He was a thinker, a writer, a man with strong opinions. He wrote pamphlets about society, relationships, and discipline. And based on what he wrote, he definitely had some thoughts. He believed in self-reliance, control, order. And in many ways, the castle reflects that. Visitors would arrive and find a sign, "Ring bell twice," which feels polite, but also just a little ominous. And if he felt like it, he would come out, give them a tour, charge a small fee, or sometimes nothing at all. He would explain just enough to keep people interested, but never enough to explain everything. In November of 1951, Edward checked himself into a hospital in Miami. He had suffered a stroke. Weeks later, he died from complications related to a kidney infection. He was 64 years old. After Edward died, the castle didn't disappear. It didn't fade into obscurity. It was found neglected, quiet, left behind, until a man named Julius Levin came across it. A jeweler from Chicago, a man who had retired early and moved to Florida looking for something different, which, to be fair, is already a pretty solid life decision. And what he found was something no one else could quite explain. He purchased the land, took ownership of the castle, and instead of tearing it down, he preserved it. He turned it into a destination, a place where people could visit, walk through, experience for themselves. His brochures described it simply: love turned to stone, which sounds poetic, but also just a little bit like a warning. And that might be the most accurate description of all, because to him, it wasn't just a mystery. It wasn't just a curiosity. It was art. Something worth protecting. Something worth sharing. And if someone couldn't afford to get in, he let them in anyway. And maybe that's the only part of this story we truly understand. Because everything else, how he built it, how he moved it, whether he had help or didn't, is still uncertain. What we're left with is the result: a monument built by one man over decades, which, even without the mystery, is already an incredible level of commitment for someone who never came back. And even now, decades later, the story hasn't faded. It's spread into books, television, music, because at its core, this was never just about stone. It was about love. A love that didn't last, but never left. In the 1980s, rock musician Billy Idol visited Coral Castle. He walked through it, stood inside it, and after learning the story, he wrote a song, Sweet 16, about a man who built something impossible for someone who was never coming back. And maybe that's the part that matters most. Not how he built it, not what tools he used, but why. Because Coral Castle isn't just a mystery. It's a monument to obsession, to heartbreak, and to a promise that was never kept. Love turned to stone. Greetings from Florida is written, researched, and narrated by me, Joe Torino. Sound design and production by yours truly, with original theme music by Modern Mimes. You can find more stories, photos, and episode extras at @FloridaPod on Instagram, and visit FloridaPod.com for links to listen on any platform, plus the official merch store. And if you like what you hear, share the show, leave a review, or tell a friend who loves a little weird with their history. And as always, stay weird, Florida. We'll see you next time.